have much to say other than after a few important phone calls last night and today, in the interest of preserving real MAGA and preserving the truth for whatever's coming down the road, we must find the truth in those who are claiming to have any type of inside knowledge. We must find the truth about those who are promulgating or propagating anything designed to fracture the base. We must find the veracity of the messenger in order to engage in any healthy discussion on the veracity of the message. Therefore, having the uncomfortable position of having no financial standing involved in this, which is otherwise known as, I've gone broke in the name of MAGA, which is okay, because in order to be taken as a true source of information and intelligence, one must agree to have no financial backing one way or the other outside of a small group of people who choose to want to hear it. So what I do have is I have a lifetime of having to be respectful of the law, of the requirements as a United States citizen and voter. Therefore, I've gone through periods of my life as a government staffer. I have been a political staffer. I have high security clearance, and that is required to be an executive of a state agency, which is done by the Pennsylvania State Police and in accordance with FBI guidelines. So suffice to say, I have no real skeletons in my closet that people can, yank out, or I'm not doxable, because as a former high-level staffer for Pennsylvania and the government agencies, and in addition to that, former county chairman for the GOP, and never having missed a vote in my adult life since I was 18, as far as I can recall. You can go ahead and lift my voting record if you want. So what we do now is we talk about what is public. What is public? I'll tell you, nobody needs to be doxxed. Nobody needs to be referenced in an unhealthy social media dialogue. No one needs to be impugned unnecessarily. What the currency of truth is basically open documentation, open source documentation of public records, and that includes court documents in the civil and criminal. It means lifting voting records to find out, say, if your particular source is claiming to be MAGA and claiming to be a Trump supporter, finding out that this person didn't vote in the general election is public record. Now, of course, for people who don't pay attention to public documentation, the fact of whether you are registered or not registered to vote and how you are registered to vote is, depending on your state, of course, whether or not you're required to pick a party, that is all open documentation. That is public record. How you vote, of course, is not in any way, shape, or form kept. So we may have people who are claiming to be MAGA that are registered Democrats. They just conveniently left that out of their whatever profile they're attempting to build for themselves. That may be revealed, and they may tell people that even though they're a Democrat, they voted for Trump. That's their call. If they want to say that, that's fine. Whether or not they are registered to vote, or whether they're registered as a Republican or Democrat, we need to find that information out, and we will. And then, of course, whether or not they voted in the primary of 2016 and the general of 2016 is a real indicator of whether or not you're being misled, and that someone is in this for a purpose that is not pure, and certainly is not without financial strings or fiscal implications for them to shape their message to an according master. So what has gone on, and this is, I've stepped away officially from any other campaign responsibilities that I have right now. Of course, this has nothing to do with my position on the board of the MAGA Coalition. This is all an independent exercise on my part as a freelance, I guess you want to call me a freelance consultant and sometimes journalist, contributor. My own website, using resources that are not tied to anyone other than myself. and I will basically undertake a full blanket research with the assistance of a few others who are pretty good at doing this, and they're doing it on their own time and dime. We will be looking at what you would call prominent purveyors of falsitudes attributed falsely under the MAGA flag. So what I'm looking at here is people that are tied to the development of Q. This will be done not in response to, but in conjunction with the chat logs and additional information that will be probably released within the next 48 to 72 hours by at least one journalist you know is working on it. There are two others working on similar stories. And then there are some independent YouTubers who are working on videos to take all that information, put it out there so other people can watch it. But I want to go deeper than that. I really won't want to get into who is saying what and why. What I'm going to do is just saying who is saying what and who they are. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull voting records for all these people. And if they've only voted one time in the last 6 election cycles, you can determine whether or not how serious they are as a person and how trusting you can be in their information that they're providing. What I'm going to do is run them through all the court systems in their particular state. I'm going to run through and find civil and criminal files, and as much as is responsible to release only what is public that can be discovered by any online investigative arm of the protections of the First Amendment. I would not dox anyone who is not making money or does not set up a PayPal or a Patreon or a personal website or someone who wants to hold themselves to the standards I hold myself cannot hold themselves to that standard and not use their real name. So if you're hiding behind a fake name and you are involved in making money off of what we perceive to be fake MAGA, then that's certainly not doxing, and we will respect whatever social media standards are applied to whatever doxing is. But we're not looking to dox anyone. This is about already reported facts, from anything from the NBC articles to the Daily Beast articles that are done and are working, apparently going on right now, that I am not commenting on and have not commented on, about some key people in the Q movement and outside the Q movement. Not my job to do that. I'll let the journalist do that because I don't trust their motivations. My motivations are purely analytical. So I'm objectively trying to find out why someone might be subjectively doling out their version of the truth. That's the least I can do to the president, because this is a myopic focus, I admit, and that is a shame that I must myopically focus like this, but this is a very key portion of the base. And we need to, Operation Takedown is about taking down people who are falsely attributing facts that are not real, and they are not actually conducive to success for the midterms, or distracting from the midterms, or distracting from the concept that we must push back against an illegal, unconstitutional attack on this president by the Department of Justice. There are people that want to put you to sleep on that. So it's your job to go to work 9 to 5 and pay your taxes and vote. That's your job. My job is to 9 to 5 research the people that are at home and not paying their taxes and taking in money through back channels and finding out that they have filed for bankruptcy, which is an important indicator to you of how they deal with their own personal finances and how you may choose to judge a person on that. Public bankruptcies are public, I should say, because that is a matter of record. And it should be, because that needs to be weighed against employment opportunities. It should be weighed against personal responsibility, things of that nature that go far beyond a credit score. And I will never do that, because even if you can falsely ascertain someone's credit history, it is illegal to promulgate any of that. So I must say, anything that involves my team, my research, will only source open public documentation, bankruptcy filings, arrest reports, court documents. If those court documents are public, say divorce proceedings contain information where you can get insight into a person's behavior and how they treat their family or their spouses, that is all relevant to how their message should be received as a supposed MAGA pundit of any source. So you can't hide behind the truth when you're attempting to convince people that your reality is the correct one, and the reality that Occam's razor is produced into the real world scenarios is in fact false. So we're going to look at the behavior socially and financially responsible behavior of people that are engaged in all this. I fully welcome them to attempt to manipulate the truth. The lies that have been piled up have gone on too long. Certainly, there's no veracity to any of the lies that have been told about me or my corporate responsibilities through the MAGA Coalition, which have all been proven false. Our FEC filings are open and they are ready to be viewed by all of you, up to our final quarterly report in July. You're welcome to look for any FEC flags or any type of penalty attached to us. You won't find any. And if you really want to try to conflate fiction and facts and make up stuff about where we held a fundraiser for Sebastian Gorka and try to say people were golfing, we know that's a lie because that would have to be itemized on the report, and nobody was doing any golfing. So if you're unhappy with the expenditures of sending Gorka to attend a fundraiser or the Horowitz conference, you take it up with Sebastian Gorka. If you want to call me anti-MAGA for putting Gorka on TV to talk about the MAGA Coalition as a supporting agency and nonprofit for the president, that's your call. If you want to look into my public voting record, I encourage you to do so. If you want to look into, you will find nothing but parking tickets, maybe when I was a staffer for the criminal side, and you, of course, will find no public bankruptcies attached to my name either. So I have that luxury of having to have gone through all that repeatedly on an annual basis from 2010 until 2014. And of course, every job I've had since then has required a sense that my employer, those that I was working with, and up to and including the fact that the Republican Senate campaign committee for the entire state of Pennsylvania, you can look at all this stuff from my work under the state GOP. Just look at it if you want. So I come at it from a unique standpoint where, I guess it's easier for me to do this because I have passed those top security clearances. It's easier for me to engage in this discussion because, as having done opposition research since 2002, something I started doing, matter of fact, for the George Gekas campaign, I believe, in 2002, I think that was the year, and when they continue to do that from every election cycle on, I have the resources just to know where to go to find open documentation. I can find, obviously, all I need to know is your name and your state, and I will find your voting record. If I know your name and your state, I will find any civil or criminal offense that has been litigated, and I will, of course, be fair. If you were found innocent or pled to a lesser charge, that information will be included. I just think it's time, and people will call it divisive and unhelpful, and I think that's actually the wrong attitude. The people that are telling you information that's not true are the ones that are being divisive. Now, if somebody comes through with a straight A, I will indicate on a grade that person, even though they're espousing ridiculous theories regarding Jeff Sessions being a white hat, black hat, wearing a wire for Mueller, trust Chris Wray and Rosenstein while all of this is happening. Listen, if you score out great and you don't have any bankruptcies, you've never beat your wife or had a harassment charge, a PFA issued against you, if you've never had, anything like that, where we get into real civic responsibility issues like bankruptcies, domestic violence, foreclosures on homes, it's that type of information that will give you a better indicator as to the viability of their information that they're trying to provide you and their status as someone who is trying to take money in order to do this. So I think it's necessary. I don't find it to be in any way divisive or unproductive. I find it to be a potentially unifying experience so that we can dismiss some of these people who are just flat out grifters, frauds, and scammers. And then it'll make more sense when their message compared to my experience in politics and government, compared to my sources, which go all the way into the current DOJ. I don't expose them. I don't talk about them. That's not the way I move. That's not the way I move forward in this debate. What I do is I bring a record of tweets and a record of article productions and appearances on both Periscope and other forums where I give you my version of what I think is the direction that things are going. And I also will sometimes espouse or engender some of the talking points from the White House and the direction that they would like things to kind of move. And that is because, of course, I have worked in the past with the people that currently do work in the White House and executive agencies outside of the White House. So that's where I'm coming from. My team will not be identified, and they are not seeking any funding for this. This is something they're taking up on their own time and their own dime. They are working with me. We are dealing with an initial file of 12 people that we're looking into, and that is it's certainly not a threat, because this is mainly what you would do on a job application. We're not doing anything different than what you would do as an applicant for a job, and that's what they want. They want to work for us as a truth-telling agent for the MAGA cause and the Trump presidency, and they want this social media world to respect them as individual truth sayers. Then when we will have to establish the veracity of that. So what we're doing is we're treating you as a job applicant. We're acting as, MAGA, a panel of MAGA interviewers that are going to assess whether or not this individual, no matter who I'm talking about, are they fit to receive monies from somebody who could be swindled or scammed with false information, that works hard 9 to 5 or midnight to 8 and does not have the opportunity to fact check everything that's coming their way. So what I consider myself to be doing right now is it's somewhat in part journalistic, and it is somewhat in part a civic responsibility to defend those who are in receipt of fake news, and in some cases don't have time to fact check that fake news, and then in turn they're being solicited to give up monies that clearly would be better produced for result-oriented production if they were given to a candidate. And there will not be any solicitation of funds to any of my endeavors, up to and including the MAGA Coalition itself is not a part of this operation, and we are not soliciting funds under any type of banner of Operation Takedown. Operation Takedown is not meant to take down anyone who is basically ready to pass the grade from our panel as a grade A person that can have a clean file, just like you would hiring somebody. You wouldn't hire anybody for a position that handles money if they have any criminal fraud charges in their past, if they have multiple bankruptcies, personal or business related, or personal issues with ugly PFAs and domestic violence charges, harassment, stalking, things of that nature. Home foreclosures are certainly an interesting factor in there. It shows personal financial responsibilities also tend to translate pretty well into your performance as an employee. So what I'm looking at, it's very similar to when I was part of a hiring team as a director of operations of a state agency. You have to take everything into account. And now we're not going to go too far into it. I'm not going to do a social media scan of everything that they've ever tweeted. I'm not doing that because I know opinions change and they vary. I'm not going to go into anything that you would do only if you were an employer, a prospective employer. I'm not getting into anybody's personal credit history or any bullshit like that. I'm not going into anybody that was charged with a crime and found innocent. That is not part of this whole thing. Only settled legal matters, civil and criminal, will be addressed. And we're not going into anything that you wouldn't do if you were seeking a position at any employer, particularly at the public employer level. So I just want to get it down. They're going to try to misinterpret what I'm doing. People are going to say I'm going after or doxing or attacking other pro-Trump people. That is not entirely true at all. What you will find in this exercise is that some of these so-called pro-Trump people aren't pro-Trump people at all. They never were before. They either didn't vote for Trump, or they were just Democrats that sought a financial gain for this. Or in worst cases, you will find that they have a history of online scamming and perhaps drug use that has been convicted in court. So there'll be no subjective things put here. If there are crimes that were committed, they must be cited by court documents and arrest reports as were printed in the newspapers. Nothing will be printed by me or in any way promulgated by me without having a source document, whether it be open newspaper reporting in a criminal log, a court document on the current disposition of that crime and adjudication. Certainly anything on the civil side. Listen, if I know how it works, if somebody falsely sues you under false pretenses and you win that court case, that is not something that I'm not going to be pointing that out, because obviously that doesn't mean anything. It's only when you are, judgments are finalized against you, or foreclosures are finalized. I mean, that's the type of thing I think people deserve to know when they're giving their hard-earned money out. And I'm fully willing to put myself out there to do this. Know that if you come after me and with false attributions, like one particular individual should not have done, and then say things like, my wife left me and I live in my mother's basement. Well, that's a funny attack, because it's of course not factual. So, but that's a good way to get on my radar. So I guess the personal side of this whole thing is, if you don't want me to concentrate on you and just look at what's in the public, then if you come at me, better come at me with something that's really real, and you do use source documentation on me. You're gonna find stuff out there that I wasn't a popular county chairman. Great, throw it at me. You want to find stuff that the Sierra Club freaking hated me when I was the director of operations for the conservation agency in Pennsylvania. That's fine. You're going to find that. That's stuff that's easily discoverable. But if you're going to come at me with some random comment on a newspaper from somebody on a anonymous name, then that's not really fair, because that's not true. That's not an open source documentation by a real newspaper or anything else like that. So I guess it's not a warning, really. What I'm doing is just treating all these people as prospective employers. So, and then of course, I don't believe in doxing, but if an anonymous person says something that is not true regarding me, then that becomes a legal matter, and then I will take that under legal consideration. And I have, of course, some things at my disposal where I can identify certain things. Even if you attempt to mask your IP address, I will do a wayback scan on everything and cross-reference everything, or my people will, and I will discover your identity. And I will not dox you online. What I will do is serve you paperwork from my attorney on standby, ready to do multiple cases like this on almost like a Rolodex basis, in a cookie cutter fashion that won't be too expensive to me, because you're basically violating the same civil components of settled law when you besmirch me or slander me, and you do it through slander or libel. It's defamation. So the only way I can fight back to that is do a cross scan. I will discover who you are. There's no way to maintain your anonymity. It's just not going to happen. And we do have some real hero anons working with us that are actually real white hats that will assist in tracking Bitcoin transactions, financial transactions, way back history scans. So, I mean, the only way to fight back against false information is to get a foothold in the truth and push back. So when people start coming at you and they start subtweeting or responding with bullshit it's not true, I have to have them isolated and then scanned. So that's a separate subset of my operations here. I will, of course, identify personal slander that is done against me in a public forum via Twitter or Periscope. I will identify those commenting on Periscope. I will cross-reference those to emails and Twitter accounts, and I will find out your identity. I will not dox you. I will serve you public lawsuits. So that in a sense is not doxing. It'll be a public lawsuit once it's filed, and your name will be on there, and it'll be associated with the account that it's been attributed to, and then you, of course, have the ability to defend yourself and come into court and say that's not you, or somehow, but that will be publicly documented, and of course that can be read on air by anyone and posted by anyone, because now it's a public document in the lawsuit. You're welcome to sue me if you find that I've gone in a place that you don't think is fair, but you are now under scrutiny just by virtue of putting yourself out there in a way where you're soliciting funds. I have a responsibility to this whole movement that began in 2016, late 2015, that I've sacrificed a couple of years of my life to keep this thing moving forward and to, give people the honest fight for the truth. And I've been doing that since the recount fiasco in the States from Stein's review. I've done that from the faithless elector crap that started right afterwards, and I've done that ever since, really. And so I'm putting myself out there at considerable cost that is going to come my way. Certainly loss of support from some people who support others that I'm going to have to unfortunately expose as either somebody who has got real serious baggage that makes their message maybe a little bit distorted. That's completely up to you. It's my job to report the truth. And if it doesn't bother you that somebody has these and they start coming together in bunches, in a lot of these cases under review so far, we have not only foreclosures matching up with other bankruptcies, matching up with PFAs, matching up with harassment, stalking, matching up with domestic violence, actual charges being filed, or drug arrest. When you start to put all these things together into one profile, that should effectively let somebody know that the least of their concerns is that they didn't even vote in 2016, but they're telling you now that they're Trump insiders. So it's very important that people get the truth. So I'm just going to cut the shit. I don't want to get into the he said, she said, or somebody tweeted that they would like John Kasich in April 2016. That is not what I'm doing. I don't care. This is not going to get dirty at all. And the only dirt that's going to be unearthed is already on your record anyway. So I've got to do this in a responsible way. I've got to do it in a way that doesn't violate any of the mediums of which I'll be discussing this on multiple mediums, the least of which will be Twitter. But the message will be effectively gotten out, and other journalistic endeavors may pick up on my work and write articles. I can't help that. It's not something I'm actively seeking. I don't plan on commenting on these articles that are being worked on right now. That's a totally different track, and it's not something I'm interested in. I've got my own work, my own team, and I'm looking at the fake MAGA people, or people who are issuing a fake message in the name of MAGA. And you need to understand that the message they're delivering in some cases is flat out bought, or for other types of financial gain. And in some cases, the people are just bad people, and they've been doing bad things for quite some time in their life, and they're not the kind of people you would sit down and trust to come into your home or even tell you what the best course forward moving politically is. So it's my job. Unfortunately, no one else is doing it. I have to do it, and my team has to do it. And we're not getting into these back and forth with these people who are saying that I'm being divisive or I'm going after so-and-so. No. If so-and-so is clean, then so-and-so passes the job interview. So-and-so is approved by a large panel of researchers and people who are looking for the best interest of the president. And by the way, the people that are working on my team have gone through this themselves. They have independently been researched to not have these types of issues, so that they don't have any, problems researching what's real and what's not. So I'm really impressed with the willingness of my team to come together to do this and do it without any type of compensation. I think it meets the merit that these people are willing to themselves be looked at as what standing that they're bringing to the whole issue of veracity. So I'm proud of my team. I'm not undertaking this mission lightly. I'm doing it now because it's got to be completed, post haste. It's got to be done immediately so that we can clean out some of the crap in the gutters here and get some free-flowing systems of information in time for the midterm, so that we are not a split base, fractured base, confused base, and you think somebody is real when they're not real at all. I think that type of thing is really, really effective for Democrats and never Trumpers in the Reagan Battalion, Egg McMuffin world, who are very active in disseminating false information and distracting people. So if you want to sit there and call yourself a MAGA person, and whether or not you're using your real name, a false name, or whatever, if you are soliciting funds to do so through a PayPal or otherwise, you are essentially asking to be employed by the MAGA movement. And so it's my job to act as if I can work in conjunction with what I would do hiring somebody on a campaign or hiring somebody for government or anything else that I've ever done in the past. Use my experience in human resources to go and my opposition research skills from doing this for a long time in politics. I'm gonna use these skills, this unique skill set, you might say, and I will find you, and I will find who you are, and that it certainly sounds ominous, but it shouldn't be. You should be proud. And if somebody wants to self-report them, get on Periscope tomorrow and all of a sudden self-report and explain away their domestic violence conviction, their the PFAs against them, the foreclosures, bankruptcies, drug arrest, that type of thing. If you or scams in the past that were attempted on the internet and reported on. If someone wants to do that in advance, that's fine. That'll all be taken in consideration, and kudos to you. To the others who attempt to malign what we're doing or mischaracterize what we're doing, that's fine. I will unfortunately, the second you get personal with me, I will unfortunately have to utilize my resources to find out what would be the reason that you would attack me just for trying to find out the truth. And if you want to stop me from finding out the truth, then I need to know who you are and why you're doing that. So by the magic of the skill sets of the people that are involved, we can track who you are no matter how anonymous you think you are. So what we're doing is nothing to do with the people that are trying to expose QAnon. Very little to do with that. What we're doing is not just strictly related to people that are putting out the Q junk, but other people who are putting out alternative scenarios. And it's not doxing. It's just we're going to find out who you are and why you might have a slanted message, and then it's up to people to believe whether or not you're still telling the truth or not. And politics is an ugly business, and when you get involved in politics and you put yourself out there as a candidate, you will be everything just turned over. And as a former candidate myself, having run for office and won, I can tell you that they will look under every rock they possibly can to find something and use it against you. So it's an uncomfortable thing going through opposition research. It will be uncomfortable for these people who are on Periscope, YouTube, Twitter, and these other, Discord chats, and the people that are trying to make money through these different mechanisms. They will be scrutinized, and they'll be scrutinized fairly with open public documentation. Nothing will be sourced that cannot be sourced either through court documents or newspaper articles, criminal logs. They will all be sourced. And so I hope that people take a small bit of comfort in that there won't be anything lobbed towards anyone that isn't official. So with that said, the caveat here is I will be attacked while doing this, and that is fine, but know that you can attack me. You need to attack me with the truth. And then I will not file litigation against you, because it will not be defamation of my character if you say something that is in fact rooted in reality. And, if you attack in a fashion where you attack my followers, you attack in a way that does not follow Twitter regulations, you will be mass reported very quickly so that your behavior doesn't spread. So, if you want to fight, you got to fight fair. And I certainly am fighting fake messages in the MAGA world, but I am going to fight very fair. I'm going to hold myself to the highest standard when reporting on this. And if your personal behavior wouldn't meet the standard of an elected office, then you're probably not going to be happy with the results of my analysis as to your ability to be an approved pundit. And before you ask me, I have not tapped myself to be the president of anything other than the truth. That has nothing to do with my work as a consultant or my work as a journalist, an opinion journalist, and it certainly has nothing to do with the MAGA Coalition at all. This is a personal venture with a private team of people that are working without compensation, and they are working long hours to discover the truth, and we all just decided to come together and work as one towards one final result rather than just everybody trying to stop the madness individually. We will collectively find the truth in the name of making this country great again, not in the name of myself or the president or anything like that. It has nothing to do with the Trump 2020 campaign. This is all about readying a true force for the midterms that people can rely on. And if you indeed want to support independent journalism, then I, of course, back that, because the mainstream media is a total junk bond that you cannot invest in. But having said that, I think I owe it to people who are who are asking for and receiving monies from Trump supporters, that you do so being completely and open and honest. I encourage everybody who is doing that type of business right now to get out in front of what it is we're doing and explain it in your own way, because that's what politicians do. And if you want to do that, I would always tell my candidate, listen, you've got to explain to the people why you have a PFA, explain the circumstances behind your bankruptcy, explain the circumstances behind this foreclosure, explain this arrest for drug possession. You got to get out there and explain about it first, and then maybe people will, give you the benefit of the doubt. If not, I will have to take that upon myself. And believe me, it's an encumbrance I'd rather not bear. But I found that this is to be the most effective way forward. Others have found it and agreed to be the most effective way forward in dealing with the lies, the malfeasance, the ineptitude that people are capitalizing on monetarily. It's irresponsible, and it should not be allowed, and it's wrecking what should be a very unified Trump base right now, which we require more than ever. So let's get this done. Let's get it done in the next 30 days. Let's try to have this thing done by October 1st. Let's try to, have a full month of, people knowing who's who and where to turn for the truth, so that we can all move forward in the right direction, fight off the corrupt DOJ prosecution of a duly democratically elected president, and fight off the fake news that is going to split our base or potentially depress our base going into a midterm, which is a very dangerous thing. So I put this at a paramount interest to do this. Again, I'm starting with 12 people, not all of which are linked to Q propaganda, but the majority of which, at least in a ancillary way or supplemental way, are. So that's just my first profile. And of course, I will have a personal subset of people that attack me or anyone they think is involved with what I'm doing. Then I will deal with that through litigation. I will find and identify you and serve you with legal paperwork. So, that's just my rights as a citizen. You have your rights, but if you're not going to fight fairly, then you're going to have to fight in court. And if you don't show up in court, there'll be a judgment against you, and you'll have to justify why I can't send a constable in to confiscate your flat screen or your Xbox or whatever the hell it is you have. That's the way this works in the United States judicial system. I know it well. I will play it well. Trust me before you come at me. I'm not doing anything that is not something that is accorded to anybody running for office. So this isn't a witch hunt. This isn't an inquisition. This isn't a purity test. This is just looking at an employee who wants to take money in the name of MAGA. Somebody has to be on the other side of that table to decide whether or not you have a reason not to be honest with our people, or you have a reason to be an untrustworthy source of information based on your personal conduct. So that's all we're doing. But Operation Takedown is takedown not of people. It's a takedown of fake news involved with the MAGA. And it just take down the messages that are false, the ridiculous theories that are espoused that make no sense, that are depressing the potential of a voter turnout for the Republican Party and the president, and it is sending people off into snipe hunts where things don't exist and they're actually told to relax, don't worry. That is in fact the opposite of what the president is saying and what his people are telling us. So in the interest of just serving the general cause of MAGA, we need to find out. And I want to be very clear, that's why I'm repeating these points over and over again. Before I am attacked, I am only doing public source documentation. If you have nothing to be afraid of, you have nothing to be afraid of. If you're raising money in the name of MAGA from hardworking MAGA people who think you're giving them a source of truth because you're putting yourself up to be a person when you know you're not that person, then you're fired. In Trump mentality world, you're fired. And people still want to follow you and give you money. We can't stop them. That's fine. But people ought to know if you're giving money to somebody who is consistently dealing with bankruptcies, foreclosures, internet scams, has no political experience, doesn't vote, not registered to vote, registered as a Democrat. Concerning things like that, I think is open source information. And, we'll never go into anything that is not open source, open public. That's what I mean by open source, public documentation. There'll be no, I will not even do anything in the style of, say, WikiLeaks. I'm not going to, have anonymous information given to me, put out without public document. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to release, in many cases, I'm not going to release anything about exchanges you might have had with some person unless you can timestamp it and show me, and I will have the veracity of your timestamp message, whether it's Telegram, whether it's a tweet DM or a regular text or an email. I will have to scrutinize that, have my team scrutinize that, and before I ever, and that'll be the lowest standard of proof to me. That'll only be used as a sub-file on that testimony to your personal character. What we're looking at here is if you were an employee for an important job handling funds, or you were a candidate for office. That's kind of the background opposition check that we're doing here. It may sound a little Gestapo-ish, but I'm telling you it's not. This is all meant to come out the other side cleaner. It's like sending your dirty car through the car wash. We'll do the work for you. We'll wash the car. And if it's, you don't agree with the results on the outside, you can still follow anyone you want. It's the First Amendment issue that we will never touch, but we certainly need to know the truth about who these people are. So that's my message. I will leave this up, and it can be attacked for all you want. You certainly can try to attempt to litigate with me on whether or not these documents are real. That's fine. I'll be happy to go, and we'll have depositions, and we'll just do it that way. I mean, I've had to take this expenditure and encumbrance upon myself in the name of what's going on. It's the only way to effectively deal with all the lies and the fake news. So, I may get some pushback, but I'm beyond that point now. I really don't care. So that's where we're at. Unfollow me or whatever you want to do. If this upsets you, you certainly don't have to pay attention to the findings on this thing, but know that we're attempting to get this thing done as quickly as possible. Matter of fact, it's already been started. We're collectively bringing together people that have already started these files. So hopefully we can produce a good, honest product for you. And I look forward to hopefully finding out that most of these people involved are just honestly true agents of believing what they're disseminating and have no issues that would disqualify them from voting or being a gun owner or working a job handling money. And if you can pass the threshold of being a concealed carry permit carrier in most states, and you can receive a job handling money without a problem, and if you could, get an award from your county election board for voting every time without missing, then you damn sure are going to pass our test with flying colors. I don't think there'll be any problem. So that's where we're at. I just wanted to leave this on here. It's blind because I was driving, so I didn't see any of your comments. But I don't think you can talk me out of something that already has left the dock and is already on the open water. So I wish everybody luck in this regard. It is not a target of animus. I am just targeting the people who are using this as an opportunity. And I'd rather have the truth come out prior to the midterms than have a terrible result in November and then retroactively blaming people for that result. It's just not, that's not proactive. I want to be proactive, not reactive. So we're gonna do our own thing. I don't care what you read about in these accounts that are coming out about a couple people from those journalistic reporting things are not, anything to do with us. I'm not giving any of my information to these outlets that are reporting on these people. It's totally separate. It just has led me down a path that I need to do this fairly and freely and get it out there for everybody to see so that their hard-earned money can either stay in their pocket or go to a candidate directly and not to anybody out there who is not who they say they are. That's all I've got for you. Wish I had more, but information right now will be on hold until this project is done. So thanks for everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed my car scope here, and I'll see you next time. See if I can